You don't belong here," she yelled, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. My own daughter standing in front of me, eyes blazing with anger, while my son and his wife watched silently, smirking. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. All I wanted was for us to celebrate together, like a family. Instead, they were demanding that I sign over the house, my family home, the place I'd built with my own hands and memories, the house where my late wife and I had dreamed our children would grow up safe and happy. Now they acted like strangers, like greedy strangers trying to steal everything from me. I sat there stunned, my heart pounding in disbelief. How did it come to this? How did my own children turn against me so completely? It wasn't just the house, it was the way they spoke, mocking, disrespectful, like I was some obstacle in their way. My daughter accused me of hiding the will. My son rolled his eyes whenever I tried to explain anything. Their in-laws whispered behind my back, pushing them to be more demanding. I wanted to believe they loved me, but that day, all I felt was betrayal. When my daughter shoved the papers in front of me, insisting I sign them immediately, I knew something had to change. I couldn't just let them walk all over me. This wasn't the family I raised, and if I gave in now, I'd lose everything. Not just the house, but my dignity, my control, my peace of mind. So I stood up, took a deep breath, and told them no. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. What happened next? Well, that's the story I'm about to share with you. How my children fought over my will, until I changed every line. I want you to meet the people in my story, the ones who made this family drama so personal and painful. There's me, the father, and narrator, trying to hold my family together through thick and thin. Then there's my son, Michael. He's the quieter one, more reserved, the type who tries to avoid conflict, but has his own stubborn streak. He's married to Anna, a sweet woman who used to be close to me, until the tension started. Then there's my daughter, Lisa. She's the firecracker, always had a strong will, but over the years something changed in her. She became sharp, impatient, and more concerned about what she could get than what she could give. Her husband, Robert, didn't help. He's a smooth talker, always pushing Lisa to be bolder, louder, and more demanding, especially when it came to the inheritance. My lawyer, Mr. Thompson, has been a steady presence throughout this whole ordeal. He's the one I trusted to keep everything fair and legal. Then there are a handful of close family friends, people I've known for decades. Some stood by me, others slowly drifted away as the family rift grew. We lived in a modest but comfortable house, the kind that holds 1,000 memories. The holidays, birthdays, quiet evenings by the fireplace. My late wife and I built this life with love and sacrifice, hoping to pass it on as a legacy. We wanted our children to cherish it as more than just property. But beneath the surface, the cracks were already forming. What started as subtle disagreements soon turned into cold shoulders, whispered arguments, and pointed comments. It felt like the family I knew was slipping through my fingers, replaced by something I barely recognized. This story isn't just about money or property. It's about trust, respect, and what happens when those things break down. Our story begins long before the arguments and fights. My wife and I worked hard. Decades of sweat and sacrifice. Build a life that would give our children a future. We weren't born into wealth. I started out as a small business owner, grinding through years of uncertainty, while my wife managed the home and supported me every step of the way. We saved every penny we could and invested carefully, eventually buying the house where we raised Michael and Lisa. That house was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of our family's strength and hopes. Every corner held memories. First steps late, night talks, family dinners filled with laughter. From the beginning, I dreamed of passing this legacy on to my children, hoping they'd respect it and each other. I pictured family gatherings full of warmth, where disagreements were solved over cups of coffee, not through shouting matches. But life had other plans. As the years went on, things started to change. Michael married Anna, and for a while it seemed like the family was expanding peacefully. Lisa married Robert, and that's when subtle shifts began. Robert's ambition was clear, and Lisa's attitude started hardening. It wasn't just about money. They seemed to forget the meaning behind the house, the years my wife and I spent building it. Greed and entitlement crept in like shadows, slowly turning my children against one another and me. I tried to ignore the signs at first. I thought maybe it was just stress or misunderstandings, but deep down, I felt the foundation cracking. Our family's story wasn't unique, I guess. But to me, it was the story of my life, and watching it unravel broke something inside me. The cracks started small, almost invisible at first. Maybe it was a sarcastic comment here, a dismissive glance there. Little moments that, when added up, told a story I didn't want to face. Lisa began to act differently around me. Where she once showed respect, she now rolled her eyes when I spoke. I caught her whispering with Robert, shooting looks that made me feel unwelcome in my own home. Michael wasn't much better, quiet, but cold. The warmth I once felt for my children was fading fast. Family dinners became tense, conversations turned into arguments over trivial things. Once, Lisa laughed mockingly when I mentioned the will. "Dad, you're stuck in the past," she sneered. "Why hold onto something that doesn't even belong to you anymore?" It stung more than I wanted to admit. Their in-laws added fuel to the fire. Anna and Robert whispered behind my back, pushing Michael and Lisa to be more demanding, to take what's theirs. Friends noticed the change too. Some tried to mediate, but others just drifted away, uncomfortable with the growing tension. I remember one moment vividly. I was handed a stack of papers by Lisa, documents she claimed I needed to sign to finalize everything. She spoke as if I had no choice, as if I were an obstacle to be removed. That's when I realized this wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about control. They wanted to force me out of the story entirely, but I wasn't ready to give up, not yet. The first cracks were just the beginning. What came next would change everything. The uneasy silence that had settled over our family soon gave way to open conflict. What began as subtle digs turned into outright disrespect. Family gatherings became battlegrounds, and every conversation felt like walking on eggshells. Lisa's sharp tongue grew sharper. At dinner one night, she slammed her fork down and said, "Why do you keep pretending you're still in charge? The house isn't yours to decide about anymore." Her voice was loud enough that Michael and the others froze, staring at me. Michael, usually the peacemaker, started siding with her more often, his quiet demeanor replaced with cold indifference. Anna whispered suggestions into his ear, and Robert encouraged Lisa to push harder. Their in-laws, once polite and reserved, now felt emboldened. I overheard Robert telling his mother, "They're just old now, it's time we take control." The bitterness cut deep. I tried to keep the peace, hoping reason would prevail, but every attempt to discuss the future turned into an argument. I was no longer the father or the head of the family. I was an obstacle, a burden they wanted to remove. One day, during what was supposed to be a casual family lunch, Lisa snapped at me in front of everyone. "You're wasting time holding on to the past. Sign the papers, Dad, or you'll lose everything." The shock of her words hit me harder than I expected. My own daughter, threatening me as if I were a stranger. It was the first time I realized the true extent of their greed and disrespect. Even old friends who had once been like family began to distance themselves, afraid to take sides. The house that once echoed with laughter was now filled with silence and tension. I felt betrayed, not just as a father, but as a man who had given everything for this family. But I wasn't ready to back down. There was one last move I hadn't made, one secret that would turn everything upside down. The tension in the house reached a boiling point when the topic of the will came up. It was inevitable, really. Money and property had always been a delicate subject, but now it was at the center of every conversation, like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Lisa was the first to bring it up openly, her voice sharp and demanding. "Dad, you need to tell us what's in the will." We deserve to know. She looked at me like I was hiding something important. Michael was quieter, but just as persistent. "Dad, it's better if we all know what to expect. No surprises." I understood their frustration, but their tone made it clear it wasn't about fairness. It was about control. They wanted me to hurry up and hand everything over, to sign the papers and make it official. They didn't want to wait for my time or respect my wishes. I tried to explain that the will was in the lawyer's hands, that everything would be handled legally and fairly, but no one seemed to hear me. Lisa rolled her eyes and Robert scoffed, whispering something to her that made her smirk. At one point, I caught Lisa quietly telling her friends about a secret clause. They thought I was hiding something that would change who got what. The rumors spread like wildfire, turning friends and relatives against me. Even Mr. Thompson, my trusted lawyer, was pulled into the drama. Lisa and Robert tried to pressure him, calling and visiting the office, demanding access to documents that weren't theirs to see. It felt like they were trying to rush me into decisions I wasn't ready to make, to force my hand before I could think clearly. The house no longer felt like home. It was a battleground where respect and love were being replaced by greed and suspicion. But I had my own secret, a safeguard I put in place years ago, just in case things ever went wrong. Something that would protect what was truly mine, and maybe save me from losing everything. Little did they know, the real story was still waiting to be told. The breaking point came faster than I expected. It was a family meeting, something I hoped would bring clarity, but instead it turned into a storm of accusations and demands. Lisa, fueled by Robert and the whispers from her in-laws, was no longer holding back. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Dad, I want the house. I've earned it. You should sign over the deed to me, and that's final." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. The house was my home, the place where I raised both my children, a place full of memories with their mother, and yet here she was, treating it like a prize to be claimed, not a family legacy to be honored. Michael stayed silent, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way he glanced at Anna, who looked equally torn. Robert, on the other hand, leaned forward with a smirk, clearly enjoying the power play. I tried to reason with her. "Lisa, the house isn't yours to just take. There's a will and legal processes. This isn't how family works." She laughed, cold and bitter. Family doesn't matter anymore. This is about what we deserve." I could feel my heart breaking, not just because of her words, but because the son I once knew didn't stand up for me. Instead, he remained silent, unwilling, or maybe too scared to pick a side. The room felt smaller, suffocating. The in-laws whispered behind my back, encouraging Lisa's boldness. Friends who once gave me support now looked away. I realized then that I was fighting more than just a legal battle. I was fighting for my dignity, my place in my own family, but I wasn't defeated yet. I had one last card to play, something they didn't expect. What happened after this confrontation, the truth, the secret will, and the fight that changed everything? After that brutal meeting, I was left shaken but not broken. I retreated to my study, needing space to think. That's when the call came from Mr. Thompson, my lawyer. "Sir," he said cautiously, "there's something important you need to see. I've just sent you a letter regarding your will." I felt a flicker of hope. Could this be the break I needed? A few days later, the letter arrived. I opened it carefully, reading every word. Inside, Mr. Thompson explained that years ago, when drafting the will, I'd added a secret clause, one that none of my children knew about, a clause that gave me the power to change the distribution of my estate if certain conditions were met. Conditions like disrespect, threats, or attempts to force me into decisions. I couldn't believe it. I had created this safeguard to protect not just my property, but my dignity and peace of mind. It was my last line of defense against the betrayal I was facing. The letter also contained updated property deeds and instructions for what would happen if I chose to invoke this clause. It meant I could change every line of the will, rewrite the story on my terms. For the first time in months, I felt a surge of control. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was ready to fight back, but I had to be careful. If my children found out about this letter too soon, they'd try to challenge it. I needed to plan my next move. This secret was my weapon, and I was about to use it. What happened when I confronted them with this truth? How did the family react? That's coming next. The day I decided to confront them, my heart was pounding, but I knew I couldn't back down anymore. I called a family meeting, this time on my terms. Everyone showed up, their faces full of suspicion and barely disguised impatience. Lisa was the first to speak, eyes flashing. "So, what now? You finally going to sign those papers?" I took a deep breath and held up the letter from Mr. Thompson. "No. In fact, I have something to tell you all. Years ago, when I made the will, I included a clause, a secret clause, that allows me to change the distribution of everything if I feel disrespected or pressured." The room fell silent. I could see disbelief flicker across their faces. Michael's jaw tightened. Lisa's smirk faltered, replaced by something like anger mixed with fear. "You've been trying to bully me into signing over my own property," I said quietly, looking each of them in the eye. "But I'm not the same man you thought I was." I explained the conditions Mr. Thompson had laid out, and how this clause meant I could rewrite Every line of the will. I wasn't just giving in to their demands. I was in control. Lisa shouted, "You can't do that. We deserve what's ours." "But I decide what's fair," I said firmly. "This family is about respect, loyalty, and love, not greed and threats." Robert jumped up, trying to argue, but I cut him off. Enough. The room was tense, emotions raw. Some family friends looked shocked. I saw a few faces I hadn't seen in a while, watching closely, waiting to see what would happen next. For the first time, the power dynamic had shifted. They were no longer in control, and that terrified them. What happened after this confrontation? The truth exploded like wildfire. The fallout was messy and painful. The moment I dropped the truth about the secret clause, the room seemed to freeze. You could hear a pin drop. Lisa's face went pale, and Michael's eyes darted nervously. Even Robert, usually so confident, looked rattled for the first time. "You mean you've been holding all this power without telling us?" Lisa spat, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "That's right," I said firmly. "I wanted to protect what's mine, and what's rightfully mine." Voices started rising, accusations flying back and forth. Lisa screamed that I was playing games, that I didn't trust my own children. Michael accused me of betrayal. The in-laws whispered insults behind their hands. Suddenly, the family friends who had gathered in the room shifted uncomfortably. Some sided with me, saying they respected my decision. Others looked away, unwilling to get involved. I could see the chaos I'd unleashed. It was messy, hurtful, but I also felt a strange relief, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. Lisa stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Michael hesitated, then followed her, leaving me standing alone with Anna and a few others who stayed behind. I realized then that this fight was bigger than money. It was about respect, boundaries, and reclaiming my dignity. I didn't know what the future held, whether this family could ever heal, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. That night, as the house settled into silence, I finally felt like I had taken back control of my life. After that explosive confrontation, the cracks in the family didn't just widen. They turned into chasms. The house that once felt warm and safe now echoed with silence and tension. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Lisa refused to speak to me. She stopped returning calls and avoided family gatherings altogether. Michael was caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to his sister and respect for me. His silence was louder than any words. Anna and Robert's influence only made things worse. They spread rumors among our circle of friends, painting me as the villain who was selfishly holding on to wealth. Suddenly, some of the people I had trusted for years started to distance themselves, afraid to take sides or get involved. The family friends who had once been like an extended support system fractured too. Some sided with me, standing quietly by my side. Others quietly slipped away, uncomfortable with the growing drama. Even within the family, alliances formed and shifted. It was heartbreaking to watch the people I loved turn into strangers overnight. The betrayal cut deep. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about loyalty, respect, and painful realization that some relationships might never heal. But through all this, I found strength in my own convictions. I knew I had made the right choice by standing up for myself, even if it meant losing people I cared about. The battle wasn't over. There were still fights ahead, legal battles, emotional battles, but I was ready. I had taken back control, and I wasn't giving it up. In the weeks after the confrontation, I realized that regaining control wasn't just about the will or the house. It was about rebuilding my life on my own terms. The family chaos was draining, but I refused to let it break me. I leaned heavily on Mr. Thompson, my lawyer, who helped me navigate the complicated legal battles that followed. Lisa and Robert tried to challenge the secret clause, filing lawsuits and stirring up drama. Michael was caught in the middle, unsure where to stand, sometimes siding with me, other times staying silent. The courtroom became another battlefield where every word was a weapon and every move was carefully calculated. But I had my proof: the letter, the original documents, and a clear record of my intentions. Slowly, the law began to side with me. Outside the legal fights, I had to rebuild my personal boundaries. I stopped answering calls from people who only wanted to stir trouble. I limited visits to the house, focusing on what mattered most: peace and clarity. It wasn't easy. There were moments of loneliness, days when the weight of betrayal felt unbearable, But I reminded myself that this was about more than money. It was about respect, self-worth, and reclaiming my dignity. Surprisingly, some family friends came back around. They saw my strength and the fairness of my actions. They offered support and kindness when I needed it most. Slowly but surely, I started to feel like I was in control again. Not just legally, but emotionally. I was no longer a victim of greed and betrayal. I was the author of my own story. But the hardest part was still ahead, facing the consequences of their choices and deciding what kind of family I wanted to have moving forward. The aftermath of the battle wasn't just legal. It was personal, raw, and unforgiving. Lisa and Robert's challenge to the will dragged on in court for months, but the secret clause held strong. The judge ruled clearly, the terms stood, and I had every right to change the will based on their behavior. Lisa was furious. She lost not only the chance to claim the house, but also the respect she once had. The bitterness between us deepened, and she chose to cut ties completely. Michael, caught in the middle, finally took a stand, choosing to side with me. The damage to our relationship lingered. Anna and Robert's manipulation didn't go unnoticed. Their reputation within our circle took a hit as friends distanced themselves from their toxic behavior. Some family friends who had tried to stay neutral eventually made their feelings clear. They wouldn't support greed and disrespect disguised as entitlement. I faced the painful reality that the family I thought I had was fractured beyond repair. Invitations stopped coming. Holiday dinners were silent or avoided altogether. The warmth I'd once felt was replaced by coldness and distance. But I also found a strange kind of peace. By standing my ground, I regained not just control of my property and legacy, but control of my life and self-respect. The consequences were tough, but necessary. Sometimes, protecting what you love means letting go of those who don't respect it. Or you, looking back on everything, it's hard not to feel a mix of pain and relief. The betrayal I faced cut deeper than I ever imagined. It wasn't just about money or property. It was about trust, love, and family. Watching my own children fight over what I worked for, disrespect me, and turn their backs was heartbreaking, but through that pain, I learned valuable lessons. I realized that sometimes people show their true colors when things get tough, and that not everyone you call family will stand by you when it matters most. Still, I also found moments of hope. The friends who stayed, the few family members who reached out with kindness, reminded me that I wasn't alone. More importantly, I found strength within myself, a determination to rebuild and protect what truly matters. This journey taught me that respect isn't something you can demand. It's earned and maintained, and when it's broken, you have to decide whether to fix it or walk away. I chose to keep fighting, not just for what I owned, but for my dignity and peace of mind. After everything settled, I knew I needed a fresh start, not just for my home, but for my heart and mind. The battles had taken their toll, but they also taught me how important it is to set clear boundaries. I began by surrounding myself with people who truly cared, friends who had proven their loyalty, and family members who respected me. I learned to say no when someone crossed a line, no matter how close they were. It wasn't easy, especially when it involved my own children, but it was necessary. I also found comfort in smaller, quieter moments. Morning coffee on the porch, walks in the garden, and rebuilding my relationship with Michael, who slowly started to heal from the rift. I realized peace isn't about having everyone around you. It's about having the right people. I made peace with what I lost, but I refused to lose myself. I took back control, not just legally, but emotionally. This new chapter isn't perfect, but it's honest. I learned to protect what matters, not just my possessions, but my well-being and my dignity. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this: respect matters more than money. A family without respect is a house built on sand. No matter how grand, it won't stand the storms. I learned the hard way that wealth can't buy loyalty or love. It can't fix broken relationships or heal wounds caused by greed and betrayal. And sometimes the people you expect to stand by your side will surprise you in the worst ways. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, and demanding respect isn't selfish. It's necessary. You don't have to accept disrespect just because someone is family. Protecting your dignity is part of protecting your legacy. Now, with the will changed and my life reclaimed, I hope my children understand that what really matters isn't the house or the money. It's the love, respect, and trust that should come first. This story isn't just about inheritance. It's about family, values, and the lessons we carry forward. Remember this: respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.